Then on Sports Central, we go over a college football bowl preview and prediction on the 2021 LA Bowl matchup between the Utah State Aggies and the Oregon State Beavers. Both teams have had great seasons to this point. Utah State is their Mountain West champion, currently sitting at 10-3. They just won their conference championship game. So a huge season for the Aggies, and they're facing off against an Oregon State team that is a top half team in the Pac-12, currently sitting at 7-5. Not a bad season for them either. We'll be over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Utah State, once again, just won their conference championship against San Diego State. Dominant win, wasn't even close. 46-13 was the final score there. So just a massive win over the number 19 team in the country. And Utah State has got all the momentum in the world heading into this matchup after a win like that. I mean, Utah State has kind of flown under the radar in the Mountain West this season. I mean, if you look at that conference, I mean, Utah State and Air Force, of course, were the top teams in their division. Boise State kind of in the background there. And, of course, you got San Diego State. Fresno State was ranked at one point as well. And then Utah State comes out of nowhere and wins the conference. So, yeah, huge win for them at 10-3. Oregon State lost to Oregon in the last game of the regular season. 29-30 it was the final score there. So, tough loss in the rivalry game. But otherwise, I mean, Oregon State has still had a great season. So, definitely not anything to be too sad about. I mean, they're 7-5, and this is a young football team as well, so the future is very bright for the Beavers moving into next season. Game will be on Saturday, December 18th, Inglewood, California, and this game is in the all-new SoFi Stadium. 4:30 p.m. Pacific time is their kickoff time. Spread's going Oregon State here by 7, so kind of surprising seeing Oregon State favored by that much. I figured to be, I'm not surprised seeing Oregon State favored, but the spread is kind of heavy, I do think, towards the Beavers right now. Over under is 66. Your FBI is going Oregon State as well, 66.3%. Series history, Oregon State leads at 3-0. Last game was in 1998 between these two football teams. Stat comparison, Utah State's got 33 points per game, 25 points allowed. 305 pass yards game, 146 rush yards, so a very heavy passing offense here with the Utah State Aggies. And of course, their quarterback, Logan Bonner, has had a huge season, over 3,500 yards over the course of the year, and he's been a big reason why this team has been a contender in the Mountain West. Rush yards per game, 146, and then for yards allowed, 228 passing, 162 for rushing. So rush defense has been a bit of a concern for this football team, but otherwise they've played very well all season long. Oregon State, 32 points per game, 25 points allowed, 213 pass yards a game, 217 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, you got 241 passing, and then 146 for rushing. Some recent matchups, Utah State, of course, beat San Diego State 46-13. Just a huge win there. I mean, San Diego State's a very good football team, number 19 team in the country, and this team controlled them. Beat New Mexico 35-10, lost to Wyoming. That game is a huge outlier on this schedule. I mean, if you look over the course of the season for Utah State, they've been a pretty consistent team for the most part. Lost to Boise State 27-3 back a few weeks ago. That was in late September. But, I mean, otherwise, this team has been very consistent and dominant over the course of the season. Also beat San Jose State 48-17. Beat New Mexico State as well, 35-13. As for Oregon State, lost to Oregon 29-38. Did beat Arizona State 24-10. That was a huge win. Arizona State's a pretty good football team. And that's the thing about Oregon State this season. If you look at their schedule, I mean, this team, something that I've noticed is they have played excellent at home. Every single home game, they've played lights out every single time. Like, they had that huge win over Utah back on October 23rd. That was a home game. Beat Stanford by 3 touchdowns. Beat Arizona State by 2 touchdowns. Blew out Hawaii and Idaho. And also beat Washington back earlier in the season as well. Their road games have been a bit of concern. I mean, they lost to Purdue. They lost to Washington State. Lost to California and Colorado. Those two games especially, Cali and Colorado, those two football teams are not very good. And Oregon State struggled against both of them. So playing on the road has been a bit of an issue for Oregon State. So we'll see how they do. Playing in a new environment in Los Angeles. But, yeah, that is a bit of a concern for me going into this matchup. Some key points, Utah State 10-3, Mountain West Conference champions. They've won 7 of their last 8. This team has got a ton of momentum. They, of course, lost to Wyoming once again. That's just a huge outlier on the schedule. But if you take that loss away, this team has been excellent ever since October started. So Utah State has got all the momentum in the world going into this matchup, and they have been dominant. Oregon State is a team that's played excellent in home games. Once again, if you look at their home schedule, they've been excellent every single game this season. They didn't even lose a home game this season, so definitely something to keep in mind. They played a tougher schedule than Utah State, so obviously that 7-5 record somewhat is equivalent to Utah State's 10-3 in a way, because Oregon State has played a much more difficult schedule. But I mean, either way, Utah State has still gotten some good quality wins down the stretch. And of course, you got BJ Baylor, major impact player for Oregon State. He's got over 1,200 rushing yards, probably will get up to 1,300 rushing yards in this game here. And he's also rushed for 13 touchdowns, so he's been a big impact player this season. That said, let's get to the prediction here for Utah State and Oregon State. I'm going with the upset here. I'm going to take the Aggies over Oregon State, and this was a tough one to predict. Both teams are very talented. They've had great seasons, so yeah, huge credit to both these teams going into this matchup. I'm going to go with Utah State, and the main concern for me is, Utah State's got all the momentum in the world going into this matchup. They've played excellent, down the stretch. Once again, they've won 7 of their last 8. So Utah State is a team that's very talented. They've got a lot of good experience, and they've really improved over the course of the season. On the flip side for Oregon State, the main concern for me is looking how they've played on the road. They lost to Colorado and California. Those 2 losses were 2 terrible dents in the schedule. This team would be 9-3 right now if they could get the win in both those matchups, as they should have. So, Oregon State playing on the road has been a bit of an issue, and that's not the sole purpose as to why I'm going with Utah State here. Oregon State has got they have a tremendous running back, BJ Baylor, who is a big impact player. Knowing their quarterbacks had a good season as well. But yeah, for Oregon State, it's a tough prediction, but I'm going to go with Utah State here to get the win coming off of a Mountain West title game. I do think they'll be a bit more motivated in this matchup as well. A Mountain West title like they did, they found something to work there. So I feel like Utah State going into this matchup is going to be ready to go, and Oregon State's going to be ready to go as well. But I think Utah State is the better team in the end. Let me know your thoughts and comments below on this prediction. I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.